There have been a number of horror anthology shows over the decades, but Tales from the Crypt holds a special place in my heart above all the others. Several of those other shows were good, but Tales from the Crypt was great, even when it was really bad. I think one of the primary things that really sets the show apart from its contemporaries, predecessors, and successors was its one of a kind host, the Crypt Keeper himself. It's nearly impossible to watch his segments and not at least crack a smile at his horror themed puns. Based on the stories from the EC comic series like Haunt of Fear, Vault of Horror, crime suspense stories, shock suspense stories, and Tales from the Crypt, the show brought these old stories to life in sleazy 80s and 90s glory. Helmed by a production team of some of the greatest filmmakers of the day, Tales from the Crypt raised the quality of horror anthology, and Arion and HBO allowed them to push the envelope and tell stories they would otherwise be unable to tell. The stories ranged from supernatural horror to crime stories with a twist, but they almost always contained an ironic comeuppance for a character deserving of it. There are 93 episodes of the show told over 7 seasons. Over a run that long, you're going to have great, must-see episodes, as well as duds that are better skipped. I wanted to make a video for this Halloween of my top 10 episodes. In the end, I just couldn't whittle the list down to 10, so you'll have to make do with my top 11 favorite episodes of the show. Just as a content note, this is not the top episodes. These are my favorite episodes. Some of these will be on many of those top episode lists, but some might not. These are the ones that I really like for some reason or another. With that out of the way, let's get to the list. Number 11 is an episode that I readily admit is not that great, but for some reason I love it. Dead Right tells the story of a gold digging waitress, Kathy, who is told by a fortune teller that if she marries a disgusting, slovenly wretch of a man, Charlie, he will inherit a large sum of money before dying a horrible death. Starring Demi Moore, this episode details the miserable marriage she enters into for the sake of quick fortune, as well as the way she gets the money and her ultimate fate. The episode does a really good job of making Charlie look as grotesque as possible. You almost feel bad for Kathy before remembering that she intentionally entered into her situation and deserves everything that happens to her. It's not a good episode, but I love it. Number 10 is Carrion Death, which sees a cat and mouse game across a barren desert between murderer Raymond Diggs and a state trooper. Halfway through the pursuit, the trooper handcuffs himself to Diggs, played by Kyle MacLachlan, and then is promptly killed, but not before swallowing the key. Instead of cutting into the trooper to get the key, Diggs decides to carry the trooper on his back across the desert toward Mexico. The whole time, Diggs is followed by a hungry vulture hoping to find its next meal. Diggs is a horrible character, but you can't help but be interested in him and his outcome because of Kyle MacLachlan's charisma. The state trooper, played by George Del Hoyo, is a stereotypical, gritty, hard-nosed cop. The ending is particularly gruesome, but well-deserved. Number 9 is Fitting Punishment, a story about an orphaned teen, Bobby, that goes to live with his only living relative, the miserly and cruel funeral home director Ezra Thorntonberry. Ezra, an ostensibly Christian man, takes his nephew in, but only to use him as free labor, teaching him about all the ways he steals from his clients and cuts corners to scam them. After an argument between the two of them, Ezra injures Bobby and eventually kills him. However, that's not the end of their interaction with each other. Ezra is one of the worst characters depicted in Tales from the Crypt, and Bobby's revenge is epic. Number 8 is Two for the Show, which is strictly a crime story centered around a man who, in a fit of rage, kills his wife and struggles to hide the body from a particularly curious police detective. The fight between the main character Andy and his wife over her unhappiness in the marriage and the revelation that she is having an affair is very tense. He lashes out and stabs her. In order to hide the body, he decides to dismember it and hide it in a large chest. He proceeds to load it onto a passenger train, reasoning that he can tell the police that she left him after their fight. Unfortunately, the investigating officer, Officer Fine, is also at the train station, and Andy is pressured into boarding the train as a passenger himself. While on the train, he finds that Officer Fine is also on board. Over a meal, Fine reveals that he is there undercover as part of a drug sting that is at the very next stop all the luggage on the train will be searched. With only moments to act, Andy runs to the passenger car and swaps out his luggage tag with another similar-looking chest and hurls his own into a river that the train is crossing. Unfortunately for Andy, there's a surprise waiting for him at the next stop. My number 7 episode is one that many list among the very best, but for me, I like a few others just a little bit more. That episode is the Ventriloquist Dummy, one of the classic quintessential Tales from the Crypt episodes. This episode follows an up-and-coming ventriloquist, Billy, as he meets and seeks to learn from his childhood idol, Mr. Ingalls, who sustained a devastating injury to his working hand in a terrible fire years ago. While trying to get Mr. Ingalls to give him some pointers, Mr. Ingalls tries to explain how his dummy, Morty, is a danger to others, that it was in fact Morty who started the fire. Billy doesn't see how this is possible and confronts him about it, only to find that Mr. Ingalls has a special secret to his act. This episode is so fun in a very morbid kind of way, and really lives and dies by the chemistry between Bobcat Goldthwait and Don Rickles. Number 6 is None But the Lonely Heart, an episode that sees Treat Williams as Howard Prince, a man that uses a dating video service to locate lonely, elderly, rich women to romance, marry, and then kill. This kind of modus operandi has a natural limitation, but he decides to pull one more con and settles on Effie Gluckman. Eventually, he realizes that someone is onto him and suspects the dating service coordinator, played by Tom Hanks, Effie's butler, and the graveyard attendant who has watched him bury several wives. In the end, the ones who want to enact justice against him are those closest to his crimes. The makeup special effects in this episode are amazing and really give you the creeps. Treat Williams is always a nice addition to a cast, and he's great here. Number 5 is The Trap, another con episode but without the supernatural ending. This episode is about Lou Paloma, an obnoxious, rude deadbeat who finds it difficult to hold down a job, is in bad debt, and is abusive to his wife Irene. One evening, while arguing over money and declaring that no wife of his is ever going to get a job, an idea suddenly occurs to him. He hatches a scheme. He will fake his own death, collect the life insurance money, and retire to Rio to live the good life. In order to facilitate the ruse, he enlists his brother, a doctor, to help him effectively fake his death during a robbery gone wrong. After getting plastic surgery and waiting for his wife to arrive with the money, he finally returns to confront her, only to find that she and his brother have married, and she seems to have no recollection of him. Things only spiral further out of control for Lou from there. Just like the last episode that had a sudden Tom Hanks cameo, this episode sees Michael J. Fox pop in to play a prosecutor in the trial against Lou Paloma's murderer. Number 4 is the third of 3 episodes produced and released at the same time. Dig that cat? He's real gone. Joe Pantoliano plays Ulrich, a homeless vagrant who is approached by a mad doctor with the opportunity of a lifetime. Or 9 lifetimes. The doctor offers to pay him to undergo a special procedure to have the 9 lives of a cat transferred to him. After verifying that the procedure works, Ulrich finds an unscrupulous circus manager and becomes Ulrich the Undying, a circus act that allows customers the opportunity to kill him for a price. After a number of double crosses, Ulrich is left with one last life to use and barters his biggest payday ever, being buried alive. While recounting the story of how he got the lives of the cat, he regrets to himself that the cat had to die to give him his abilities. It's only then that he does the math, but it's too late. When I think about my favorite episodes of Tales from the Crypt, this is always one of the first ones that come to mind. I love Joe Pantoliano, and it's great to see Batman alum Robert Wuhl in more sleazy roles. My number 3 is Abra Cadaver, an episode that takes sibling rivalry to a whole new level. Beau Bridges and Tony Goldwyn play brothers Martin and Carl, who are both in the medical field, though their work ethic and outlook on the profession varies wildly, with Martin focused on excelling and Carl looking to have fun. When Carl pulls a prank on Martin, it causes his brother to have a stroke, resulting in the paralysis of his hands and effectively ending his career as a surgeon. Years later, Carl has risen above his childish ways and become a successful surgeon and employs his brother as a medical researcher. Martin has devolved into a bitter man and has become fixated on researching ways to preserve the brain's function even beyond death. When Carl decides to end his research funding, Martin enacts his plan, killing his brother and injecting him with the serum. What follows is a horrifying narrative where Carl is completely conscious but unable to move, effectively trapped in his own body. While that prospect may be disturbing, the ending is a truly frightening thing to consider. Check it out. My runner-up episode is Cutting Cards, which depicts rival gamblers that have had all they can stand of the other, played to perfection by Lance Henriksen and Kevin Teague. After catching sight of each other in the casino, the two of them play dice to see who has to leave the entire state for good, which of course ends in a tie. Their rivalry escalates quickly to a game of Russian roulette that takes up the majority of the episode. This scene is acted to perfection as the two of them take their turns with the gun. Even though I've watched this episode more times than I can count, every time I watch it, I find myself sitting on the edge of my seat in anticipation. I know the gun isn't going to fire, but the acting and directing are so well done, the tension is so thick, that I end up wondering if it's going to go different this time. After the Russian roulette ends in a tie, I know, unbelievable, right? They decide to play poker with fingers as the stakes. The episode ends in ridiculous fashion that makes it all the more memorable. Finally, my all-time favorite episode is Split Personality, starring the legendary Joe Pesci as Vic, a con man with a love for the number 2. After meeting billionaire twins April and June, he concocts a classic plan in order to bed them both and satisfy a childhood fantasy. Pretend he's a twin and court the two of them. When he first met them, there was some indication that the twins are not exactly sane, and Vic learns this truth the hard way. To be honest, there's not actually a lot of meat to this episode as far as the plot goes. It's really just a vehicle for Joe Pesci to be Joe Pesci in, but don't let that detract from the quality of the episode. Where else would you ever see Joe Pesci playing a long-haired hippie? This is a wonderful episode that's guaranteed to get at least one chuckle out of you and brings the shocking twist we all look for in Tales from the Crypt. Also, be sure not to miss the surprise Joe Pantoliano cameo near the beginning. That's it. That's my list. I imagine there are some on here that everyone will agree on, and I'm sure there's some on here that will leave viewers scratching their heads. Like I said, this is not a list of the objectively best episodes of the series. It's just the episodes that I enjoy rewatching the most. How does my list compare to yours? Let me know down below. Thanks for watching, and happy Halloween.